In this stream slash video slash section, I'll show you how to make one PG with, it will have dynamic event handling, custom event handling, data, and a lot more. So it will also have message logging and custom prefixes. As you can see, this is a custom prefix, and the real prefix is, going to guild models, is dot. So we can type ping if we want, and I guess we can go into localhost 3000. This is the bot right now. Looks interesting. So obviously we'll do this. This is the dashboard part of the series, I guess. Okay, so we can log in. Hopefully it doesn't log me out. Cool. So we have our guilds here. So if we go into 4PG, which is what we'll be using, so we have a prefix, we can set that to dot, back to dot, and then we can do dot ping, and it should say pong, which it does. Google.com, let's go. So we can use any search engine. NodeJS, right, we type NodeJS in, so we want VSCode and NodeJS, right. So what is NodeJS? This assumes that you don't know what NodeJS is. Well, it's very good. It's JS in the browser. Let me show you what NodeJS is. I believe this is like some type of NodeJS V8 engine, I believe it's called. So console.log, we can log, hi, this is JS code, by the way. There we go, hi. That is JavaScript, and Node.js is that, but in an application. Because before Node.js, before JavaScript even in the browser, or before it could be in applications, it was done in the browser here. And it's only recently been added to applications. So let's stop this. We're going to make a new project. That was just the example you saw. So console.log hi, good, that works. Now if we install VS Code, so let me actually install the new Node.js to make it look like I installed Node.js. Okay, so I'm probably going to update my Node.js version. If we look, Node version, yeah, mine could do an update here, as you can see. Let's update that. So I recommend you go with 14, because we're going to use the latest 14 versions, which includes, if you didn't know this and you're watching, then it's good. It was in C#, so if we search C#, if you're interested, C#, null operator, something like that, question mark operator, it's null conditional operator, that one, null access, I don't know what they call it here. Is it this? Probably not. I haven't done C# in a year, so null conditional. Okay, so it's this, but ignore this, this is not JavaScript. So if people is null here, the variable people, then do not call this, because it will throw an exception. Let's try that out. So it's just for a demonstration. Var test equals null. So test dot property, I don't know, test dot a, throws an exception. Test question mark a, undefined, because question mark means null. Now you have to have a dot after it, because it's for accessing variables next to it, I guess. So you can't just have that, because that makes no sense. So it's question mark dot and then whatever property. So if I then made this to A equals B, I guess. Test.A, B, and then null if, there we go, test.a.a, that fails, so A, the first A is null, there we go, throws an exception, that's what it does. Saves a lot of if statements. Oh, we have Node here, let's install that. Okay, it's computing. We also need VS Code. Now, what is VS Code if you don't know? Well, it's what I use. I used to use Visual Studio, which is for C# only, but I think the C# days are coming to an end. Well, the first C# days are. So, hopefully I'll use C# in the future, that's what I'm planning. But it's computing. So we also need NodeJS here, so it should work. So let's install NodeJS. Add to path, yep, we want that. Chocolatey. Do we need that? We're not doing machine learning, so at the minute, so we don't need that. Node.js. Okay, download for Windows, let's do that. Now it should be installing, we already have it, so we're just gonna look at it anyway, I guess. So it should be easy to install on different browsers. It might detect what browser you're on. So if you just go to the nodejs.org, you should be fine. Same with code.visualstudio.com, you should go there if you want Visual Studio. If you don't want Visual Studio for whatever reason, Sublime Text, that's another editor that I hear people use. It's pretty similar actually, but it's got a different layout. It has very similar layout actually. You have this here, scrolling, quite interesting actually. So there we go. Or you could even use Visual Studio if you want. Now I don't use this because I think it's too complex for JavaScript. Might be good for some apps though. But here you go, here's all the different types of Visual Studios. Got one for Mac here. I believe that's the old version now. The main version, not VS Code. But there we go. So we have Node.js v 14.7.0 installed. There we go. So we also have VS Code. Now a thing you can do with VS Code is type code, and that should open a code window. But let's create our bot app now. Let's do that. Let's do the fun part. So you go to your folder, change directory, projects/documents. That's see the way around. Documents, change directory, projects. But I don't. 1pg isn't a complete project right now. We're actually working on it now. So now we're just gonna add a bot. Add a folder. So dir shows the directory, the folders you have, I guess. So make directory 1pg, that is the name, or 1pg demo. I'm going to call it 1pg demo so that we don't get confused. We already have a 1pg. So now code dot. So what code dot does, dot is the current directory, I believe, or you could just cd dot dot, change directory backwards one, and then code one, change directory 1pg demo, or code 1pg demo, sorry, and that should do the exact same thing. We already have it open. So let's go into let's create the first file. But it's different with Windows. You can't do touch. It's like some weird command. So we're not going to do that. Instead, we're just going to make it here. It's simpler. So, bot.js. This is our first file. Wow. So if we type console.log hello world. Oh, such a generic statement, but there we go. Now, if you don't have Node V, if that's not a valid command, then you probably don't have it installed properly. Or you could have it installed, but it might not be in the path. So the path is $path, I believe. That's the variable, so that's what they use in File Explorer, I guess. So there we go. So node, so we're gonna do node bot.js hello world. That should do that. Now, to make sure you have the latest version installed, we're gonna do some new syntax. So null. So we're gonna type null or hello world. I believe this is version 14 syntax. Question mark, so it's the null operator. If this is null, then do this instead. If this is null, undefined. If undefined is null, then hello world is good. Let's make sure. Hello world, it is. I don't think it works for empty strings, so. Oh, it does. I mean, I don't think empty strings are null. They're not. So node, it says node there. Hello world 1. Yeah, you can do that if you want. But yeah, we have the latest version installed. Let's go. So, we're going to start the bot with VSCode. So, F5. Now, this will create a launch.json. The good thing with VSCode, this enables dynamic debugging, which I'll show you in a minute. So, press F5, NodeJS, there we go. So, we want to create a VS Code file here, .vscode folder, a launch file more accurately. I don't know what it's doing, so create a launch.json file. So I believe what we do is we go into here and create a launch.json file. That should do something here, that's what we want anyway. Oh, there we go. So it eventually creates a launch.json. Now, JS has built in, on VS Code, they have built-in support for executing or running Node.js. So this is like the browser, if you've ever used the browser to debug the program. So, we have hello world. Now, if we press F5, it should run bot.js, which it does. It detects this file, and it's in launch.json, bot.js, and it works. So we can type var a. We're going to do some dynamic debugging, as I call it. So, a equals b. So, console.log, I guess. We're just going to have a there for no reason. And then a there. So, we're going to add a breakpoint. So, I'll show you what a breakpoint is. So, we press F9 here and F9 here. Okay, so what that does is it pauses execution. I'm not sure why it paused here. I think it just ignores these as they don't do anything. Never mind. I'm not sure this is... I don't think this does anything, to be fair. So, what this does is it shows all the variable values at a given time. It lets you pause time and reflect on what your application is doing. So, let's do that again. So, A starts off as A here. So, A is A. And then when this is not executed yet, so when we press play here, continue, F5, it's set to B. And there we go. And we can also add a watch here to make sure that is the case. It's easier. So let's refresh. Control Shift F5 to restart. There we go. So it starts off at A, then when we press play, it goes to B, and then the application closes, and it's done. That's dynamic debugging. Okay, so now we've got Hello World, but our app is boring. It doesn't do anything. Why is that? That's not good. Okay, so let's fix that actually. So if you're new to NPM, hopefully you have NPM installed. I believe it comes with Node NPM version. This is my version that I'm using. Yours is probably newer, depending on when you're watching this, but so Node version and NPM and Node are interconnected, I guess. So let's go to npm.js.org, npmjs.org, not .js. It's not a file. Okay, let's close these. So NPM, this is our website. So what is NPM? Well, so NPM is Node Package Manager, which is used for Node. That's what it stands for. So basically it adds external libraries to your project. Interesting. Well, we'll go on this anyway. So 4 million downloads, weekly downloads. Okay, so we have some library here. We're going to go into discord.js because that's more relevant. So what is discord.js? Wow. What is discord.js? We're kind of doing a stream on it, so, or a video, I guess. So this is the command in NPM we use to install it. So this is what the syntax looks like basically. I'm going to get onto that later. And the docs, discord.js.org. We need that open as well, we'll use that. We don't need to, but it helps. So there we go. So it has dependencies. Each package has a dependency on other packages that have dependencies on other packages. It's like a tree, I guess. That's how I imagine it. Dependence is who depends on it. It's the opposite of a dependency. What packages use discord.js as a dependency? So there's versions here. We don't need to know about that yet. But we can install versions separately at the same time, although we won't really be doing that. So let's do this. I don't know what this does. Okay, that's just a widget. Okay, so let's install discord.js. Okay, so npm I is short for install, or we can type install. And then save, --save, or --capital save. And then discord.js. We could type that. However, it's not going to work. Why? Because we need a package.json. So npm init. So we can type npm init, but it's going to give us loads of these options here. But we can just type npm init --yes. And there we go. What is a package.json? Well, it lists our dependencies. This is a script here, so to execute a script, what we type is npm run script, and the script is called test. Some scripts have a shorthand version where you don't have to type run, you can just type npm test. This one does, because it's a default script. Sorry. Okay. So we can add us as an author, or my Discord username, I guess. or youtube.com/danjr, whatever you want. I'm just gonna have that. There we go. So we're gonna install we can install things now. Let me show you what happens to the package.json when we do install discord.js. So there we go. So it takes a while. It makes a special folder called Node Modules. What is Node Modules? Well, Node Modules is responsible for having the modules used in the app. And a package.json tells what modules to install. When we type npm I, which installs the packages for a new project, I guess. We're also going to type git init. Git init. Now, what is Git? So Git is just source control. Basically allows you to view. Well, I hope you know what GitHub is. I'm going to assume that some people might not know what GitHub is. So this GitHub is a wrapper around Git, and it allows to share projects. Allows sharing projects. So we're going to make part of this project today. And a bit more as well. It's going to be slightly different. It allows us to share code, I guess. So we type git init. Now we can do. I like typing terminal commands. Git commit with message, test, I guess. But we need to type git add all the files. But that's not good. We don't want that because it adds the node modules files. So we make a file called. We want to ignore these. We don't want to have the modules, node modules, in the repository because they're all there. They take up unnecessary storage, and the package.json and package.lock.json, which is the dependencies of the dependencies, I guess. That's what it shows. So the package.lock.json is less important than the package.json. If we delete this, we can still install packages by npm I. To install them, it automatically creates one. Okay, so git ignore. We're going to add node modules / cool. So what that does is it ignores the node modules. So if we remove this, if we kind of like remove that, it should change color, I believe. So currently if we have a file called A, so that's being tracked. So U means tracked, but node modules isn't being tracked for some reason. So if we add node modules, you see it change color slightly. That means it's not being tracked. So, and what extension I'm using for, we'll get onto extensions. So ESLint, I believe, is what you want for JavaScript. Or you could use this, I guess, I don't know. So this is what I'm using. So ESLint, when we do a VB like that, it makes it red. So we now add git add plus dot, sorry, and then git commit message test. Or when you have, or if you have the source control, you can just do test, and this will do the exact same thing as this command. Okay, so cool. So now we're actually gonna make our bot. It's been a long time, but we're gonna make our bot. So I have a bunch of random bots here. So we're gonna make 1pg demo just for this video, I guess. So 1D, quite misleading, but there we go. So go into bot, add bot, and then build a bot. Cool. So what is a bot? It's just like a normal user. It's just like this user here. can do this exact same things, which Discord.js allows us to act like a user. The only difference is you get a bot tag here. So yeah, that's what a bot user is, very similar to a normal user. So we install Discord.js, which we've done. And also in node modules, if we go into Ctrl+Shift+T to reopen the tab. So as you can see, I believe it adds the dependencies here. Node fetch is one of them. Adds the dependencies of the dependency here, if that makes sense. But there we go. So we're going to write our first bot here. So let's get started. Const require, const Discord, you could call it. Let's see how they do it here. Let's see what they do. So this is the syntax. Const Discord equals require Discord.js, but instead we're going to type const client. Now this is a destructor, I believe. Let me confirm the fact that that's it. Destructor, JS destructuring. It's hard to say. Okay, so Mozilla, I believe it's called. Yeah, they are good with documentation. So we'll use them. Okay, it works for arrays. I haven't really used this syntax though. You can do it with arrays, but we're going to do it with this, with an object. So Discord equals require Discord.js. Cool. So what this does, const, this is the same as writing this, and then const client equals Discord.client. I believe it's the same as this, but we're getting the property within that object, the default object. So now we create the bot, const bot equals new client. Cool. Now we need to log in the bot. So bot.login. So also you can, with VSCode, you can hover over it and it will show you. It's called IntelliSense, built-in feature, I believe. So now bot.login token, that's what we want. So we copy this token, paste it in. Don't share the token, otherwise they can log in. Think of it as sharing your username and password at the same time for your bot. We don't want that. So yeah, I'll also go on JWT. I can't really speak today for some reason, but jwt.io. Let's paste this in. So it gets the ID here. So it's a JSON web token. Don't need to know about that, but it's a cool fact. So this is the ID of the bot, I believe. Something related to that. But there we go. So bot.login. So let's run this. And then let's add a breakpoint. Let's add bot here. And see what is going on with the bot variable. So as you can see, the bot, the user is null. So when the user is null, the bot is not signed in. There we go. So when the bot is not signed in, that means that the token could be invalid, or it just does not want to sign in for some reason. Discord API issues. But this takes time to log in as it sends a HTTP request to Discord. I guess an API really, it's an API wrapper, that's what Discord.js is. Basically a fancy way of sending HTTP requests, which I talk about in the dashboard section, which will be later on. Basically sending servers communicating with each other. So it's just an easier way with code to communicate with the Discord API servers. Application Programming Interface, that's what it's called. So bot.login, that does take time. Promise means it's asynchronous, takes time. Might take 100 milliseconds, 200. Say a typical response HTTP time, I guess. So cool. So we have one PG demo, nice. So when we run the bot, nothing is going on. Why is that? Bot.on, we want bot.on ready. So when the bot is ready, signed in, we can log signed in, I guess. Signed in. That's bad grammar or bad casing, but there we go. So we're going to run this. Now in terminal, it does nothing because we use the debug console. So I'll show you that it takes time. So if we Control Shift F5, signed in, it takes a while. Okay, sometimes if you sign in too often, then they'll like rate limit it. So rate limiting, we can also do, you don't have to do this, I'm just doing it for a demonstration. Bot.on rate limit, slow down. So slow down the HTTP requests. So F5. So if we keep spamming this for whatever reason, it's gonna cry eventually. It's crying now. It takes longer actually. So we don't want to sign in too often. I guess logging in is heavily rate limited because you don't want someone to brute force like spam HTTP requests for each possible token combination, I guess. You don't want that to happen, or Discord doesn't want that to happen anyway. We have our token that can easily be hacked. So why can our token be easily hacked? Wow, that's not good. Let's have a solution. So we add a config. We add a file called config.json. JSON is JavaScript object notation. You can Google it for more info. It's like JavaScript. It's basically a JavaScript object, but it's more universal. Many different languages use it basically. Think of it as a language between languages, I guess. Like the standard language of data. That's how I think of it. So I used it with C# and JS before. That's probably not a good use case. But I use it as a way of converting or communicating between the two languages. But we won't be doing that here. So now config.json, we can type token and then the bot token here. Done. That's it. We type the token in. There we go. So instead of me showing everyone the token, I can just type config. Now that's just not good. We want to import it. Config. Or we can also destructure the config file and just have token. I think I destructure a lot, maybe too much. So for a file, we want to type, because this is a module by default, we want to type // if it's in the current folder, config.json. There we go. So now config or just token, because that's, if we look at the value here, if we start it, we can look at the value, but there we go. So, rate limit, we have these events, we'll event handle soon. But there we go. Now what we're going to do is add the first basic commands. So what is a command? We'll find out. So we're just going to log messages when a message is sent in a channel. So first, how do we know when a message is sent? We don't, because why don't we know? Because 1PG is not in this test server. You can use any test server, I guess. 1PG demo. Let's go in here. So how do we invite it to our guild? How do we get the link to invite it? So we go into OAuth2 in your developer portal, press bot, that's the scope, and then admin will want it admin. Probably not a good idea, but that's what we're going to use eventually. So using 0 servers, that's good to know. So now 4PG test server, let's add it. Okay, so now we have 1PG demo. Let's start our app. So when a message is sent, we want, so before we start it, it signs in there. Before we start it, we're not doing anything here. It's just an empty function. So we can just add message. Message is automatically set as a message because that's IntelliSense. Basically, it uses AI here, artificial intelligence, too. Microsoft made it to help development with VS Code. It's very good, in my opinion. So message, we're just gonna log the message here whenever a message is sent. So it should stop execution. So there we go. Signed in. Message, or hello world. So message, as you can see, message is declared here, defined. So we can actually type JavaScript here to access the content. So the content is hello world. So if we want to learn more about the content, about the message variable, sorry, we type message in discord.js, and then we can press this. Then we get all the properties. So we have content here, the content of the message. There we go. So now it stops and it doesn't do anything. That's not good. So we want to reply. So a method here is reply. Now what that does is it replies to the message with, it replies with the mention of the user first. So message.reply, message.content. So it just echoes. It's an echo bot basically. So we put async as this is a promise and we want to await it. Instead of having to type then at the end, we can just type await. So that's the old way, the archaic way, I guess. The old JavaScript way of asynchronous programming, I guess. So, hello world. So now we say hello world, and it should say hello world. It pauses here because we have a breakpoint. So if we press play, what is going to happen? Let's find out. Okay, it just repeats infinitely, and then it says slow down because what happens is it echoes, it responds to itself. It responds to itself. So if the message dot author dot bot, if the message dot author is a bot, return. If it's a bot, return. If it's a user, basically don't respond to bots. So now it's not going to talk to itself. Hello world. hello world. There we go. That's our first. It's not really a command. Now a command would look something like this. So if I'm not a bot, and I'll do the I'll do a simple. I'll do a very basic command here. So message.content equals if message content equals .ping, and then reply with pong. That's a very basic command. So message reply with pong. Cool. And let's restart this. So hello world. So that doesn't do anything. Now ping pong. There we go. That's a command. Cool. Now there are better ways of doing this. So the prefix is dot here, as you can see. So we type this. We can type prefix plus, or we can type prefix like that using template literals or template string. We can just have loads of different commands. So we can have a pong that says ping. Very confusing, but there we go. And then we can have another command, probably else if, because the content can differ. We don't want it to be for all of them. So hi, and then just replies with hi. That's cool. Now we press F5 to run it. So now we type the commands. So the prefix is dot. Another cool thing, let me add this here. So if I actually will have it here instead. So pong hi. So it stops. So it checks. So if we want the prefix to be, we can change it mid-execution, which is cool. So it's now dash. Just ignores it. But now if we type hi and don't change anything, it says hi. And we can obviously change this to dash, and it will apply to dash. But there we go. There's some more commands. We could have a million commands. Some bots have like 300 commands, but they don't have it. They probably don't have it in one method like this. That's bad formatting. But let's say they have like loads of commands here, ridiculous amount. So yeah, then we're not going to have thousands of lines of commands here in one method unless they are a scrub at coding. Then yeah. Okay, so we remove this. So how do we manage these commands? They're getting extremely messy. Okay, we're gonna make a folder called commands, or that's gonna have the commands. We're gonna have these in separate folders here, and that is called separation of concerns. Depending on the message content, we want to execute a command if it has a specific name. So if it's a ping command, we want to reply with pong. We want to execute this, but we have this in a separate class, which is a command class. So we make a new file called command, or I like doing command. I like doing kebab case, which is this case for files. It's like that. So what is a command? So module.exports. Now an export is the default value of, there's a default value here. What is exported as the variable? In this case, A refers to the file, the default export of config.json, and that is everything within here, I guess. But this is not a good example. So module.exports equals, I'll show you in a minute, equals class command. So what is, we're going to make the class command. So, or the command class. So it has a name, each command has a name. And we don't use that syntax here. So we're going to have that by default, and each command has the code we want to execute. So we're just going to throw a new type error here. Unimplemented or not implemented. Execute not implemented. There we go. Cool. So execute args, REST operator. Basically turns the arguments so we can pass. What a REST operator does is execute. So we type execute, and it has a variable amount of arguments that can be passed into this function. So we can have 1, 1, 1, 1, I guess. Or we can have 1, 1. Or we can also have execute 1, 1, 1, and it should do the same thing here. That's what the REST operator does. I believe commands will just be one argument in this case, unless we, yeah, I think it should do that. There we go. So it can have a variable amount, any number of arguments, and obviously that will show as A, B. If A is 1, B is 1, C is 1, could be null if it's passed in, but there we go. So ... args, cool. Okay, so what do I do? I'm explaining it now. Okay, so this is the command class. You don't make a new, you don't instantiate this class. It's a template. It's a base class. So we copy this, copy the command class, and call it. We're gonna call this one ping. We're gonna have a ping command. So ping. Name ping, we don't need to add the prefix here because we'll handle that separately, and then execute. So we get the message here, that is the variable, and then message.reply con. So we also make a folder called handlers. That's not a folder. Make a folder called handlers. Then we make a file called command.handler. Hang on, I'm doing the syntax wrong. I typed .ts. Command dash handler, because I'm using command kebab case. I keep getting this wrong. Command handler.js. Okay, cool. So what is command handler? Command handler will handle the messages like that. So we can just get rid of that. So import. So we're not going to require that actually. We're going to have a circular dependency and we don't want that. Cool. So how do we get the ping command? How do we connect the ping command here? What do we do? Well, so the ping command here needs to extend command, which command is declared in a separate file. Cool. So how are we going to automatically import the files without individually declaring them? So we can just copy and paste commands here and make new ones. How do we do that? So we're going to use something or a package called fs. So fs equals require. I'm going to call it file service, I believe it's called fs. Now that's a built-in package to Node. So fs dot read file. That's one of the things, but we don't want to read one file, one of the methods. read directory, that's the one. Cool. So we read directory, but we won't read synchronous. It's just what we're going to use here. Let's close that. Okay. So it's like requiring, similar syntax. So we read the directory of commands, which is here. I'm not entirely sure if that will work because the context is slightly different. But what it returns is, so it returns an array. So const files, it returns an array here. So file names, more specifically. So that gets all the file names. So let's just have a breakpoint here, and then let's execute it. But first we need to actually require the command handler. So I'm going to add this at the bottom here. So we're not going to use it, really. So require commands, no, handlers / command handler. Boom. So let's get rid of that. So on message, okay, that's called, isn't it? Bot is not defined. We need to add the circular dependency. Okay, so this is bad, by the way. If both files depend on each other, that is not good. Unless the files are very connected, do very similar things, then it's not really a good thing to be doing. So const bot equals require bot. Cool. Now we're going to add a breakpoint here. Forgot to do that. Now what that does is, has it got the file names? Yes, it has ping.js and commands.js. Now ping there. It reads the file names here in the commands folder. That's what it does. Cool. Okay, so now we're going to import them manually. So how do we do that? How do we import them? Well, we're going to use some ES6 syntax for let file name or file names. Okay, we're just going to use require. Does the job, and then we can have a variable in here. It's a good thing with require. We can have the variable of the file name, so we add commands. That's what we want to require from. But we have a problem here. Commands isn't in the handlers folder, so we go back 2 directories into the parent directory here, so we can add command there. So it has IntelliSense, it sees like that. Goes back 2, goes into here, gets commands. Cool. Then we add / and then the file name. Good. So now this is the command that is exported. Very cool. It's a valid command here. Now I'm gonna have a capital here because what command is a class. You can also type new, const command. I'm going to do this. So, and also let's debug the command here variable. Command is the class. Which class? Be any class really. Interesting. It just gives some gibberish there, just text. So we're just gonna add a watched command. So it's a class. It has prototype and then the execute function. Does it have a name is the question. Does it have a name? Should do. Okay, we'll play this as it iterates over. Now, class extends, so we have the ping command here. Like that. So, I'm just going to add a watch to command.name. So the name is dot. Now if we redo that, so it's dot, and then it's dot again, not dot, empty string. So if we go into ping, the name is ping. That's interesting, isn't it? Cool. So if it's a template class, we don't want it. If no command.name, if it's empty, continue with the loop, and then we want to see the command variable here. There we go. Let's restart. So that had a problem there. Why did it? Okay, let's try that again. We can have uncaught exceptions, so it'll break on uncaught exceptions here. Bot.on is not a function. So what is going on? Is it having login in problems? Are we logging in too often? So if we're logging in too often, we can actually add this to the ready handler, which I do in some of the bots, my other bots. So after it's signed in, we can start the command, start adding commands. Okay, cool. Bot.on is not a function. Why is that? Wow. Because we need to export module.exports the bot variable. That's what we need. So now it should work. Signed in. Oh, so the command name here, it doesn't work. Okay. Interesting. So, what is going wrong here? Why is there no command name for ping? Let's restart. Let's go here. Command name, nothing. So this is the base class. Class extends command is the ping class. Interesting. Okay. So, if I remove this, let's see what happens. I believe it might be overwriting it. Something might be overwritten here. So the command name is ping, but now it's gone. Weird. Okay. So let's also make a variable here called commands, and that will be a new map. So when there is a command, commands dot set, want the name of the command associated with command.execute. Now there's a problem here with doing this alone, So, or not command.execute, we want the command variable, but we'll get onto that problem soon. Okay, so then we can just log console.log, keep doing it wrong, loaded commands.length. But commands.length is not a thing, it's called size in a map. Loaded number commands. Let's make this logged in as, and then we can have the bot user if we want. Not going to keep it like this, but there we go. So we see who it logs in as, 1pg demo. If no command.name continue, so the command name here is 2 quotes or empty string. Command name is also empty string here. Interesting. So I believe I'm going to log what the command is, or I can just use the breakpoint, keep messing that up. So let's see, block. So the file name is command.js. So one we want to ignore really. Both file names here, that's cool, that's what we want. So ping.js, and then the command name is somehow that empty string, which I find interesting. So then we want one there. Okay, so the bot.user, you can see there's a user logged in, and the username is 1pg demo. That's just a cool thing. So command name is undefined, or just empty. So we're going to see if what that actually does. We're going to have a breakpoint there. So let's see the commands map. Okay, because we added an empty string, I believe, it did not compute properly, so we only have a map of one entry. So we only have the ping command, I believe. So we don't even, I don't think we need that other syntax, I'm not sure. Oh, the key is this. That's interesting. Let's see what we did to fix that in 1pg. Let's copy what I did there, because it's being very interesting. Okay. So we only want JS files, but we don't need to type this in. So we can also have this syntax. I'm just instantiating I'm doing the same thing here, but yeah, in a shorter way. So we can just ignore that for now, see what commands equals, or we can just hover over it. Entries, ping, yes, that's what we want. That somehow fixed it. There we go. So we don't want to require it, we want to set it as a class variable here and then instantiate it. Should be good. So command set name, ping, and then the ping command here. Class, the new class. Cool. Now, so we can type bot.on. We can actually type bot.on. Command Do we have it here? Probably not. But bot.onMessage, sorry. We can have it down here. Bot.onMessage. So when a message is sent, we have the message variable here. And then, so command, const command, we get the command equals, so we just copy the old syntax here that we had for commands. So the command is commands.find, or get, in a map it's called get, message.content. Now that's not going to work for a prefix, so we need prefix, but okay, so let's imagine the message content is .ping. We want to get rid of the dot, so what we do is type prefix equals, say the prefix is dot, so message.content.slice, so slice, so we get rid of the prefix.length, and then we don't need to specify end. So message prefix.length, we get rid of the prefix. So content equals, there we go. So content, we can have sliced content. So we get with the sliced content, but let's imagine the message is ping, 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 ping. We only want the command name, which doesn't have spaces. That's the arguments. These are arguments here of the command. So what we do is we type dot split. So if we type ping ping, we want to, the space separates the arguments from the command name. So split space, and then get the first one here, the first entry. So it gets this. So let me demonstrate that, and then so that gets that. So the message content is originally .ping space ping. So then the content is .ping, and then we get rid of the dot, which is the prefix. It could even be dot, and it would still work because it works with the prefix.length. That is cool. And now it's just ping, which we set here, and then we can get the set value of which is the command, which is cool. Let's get that. Now the command, if there is no command, return, or alternatively, if there is a command, what we can do is if there is a command, we can execute it. So command, and then with the new syntax, execute. So if it's not null, execute it, and then pass in the message as an argument. Cool. So obviously we don't want to handle events in the command handler, so we want to have a function called handle command, or just handle because it already is a command handler. So message, handle the message, bot.onMessage, message command handler command, or just handle, we'll destructure that, handle. We do need to export this. exports dot handle. I'm going to type handle command because I'm exporting it. It's not in a class. Handle command. There we go. You see, we're going to refactor this after. We're going to have a separate event handler that's similar to this, very similar to commands, the events are in separate files. It handles in separate files. But there we go. So let's get rid of this. So handle command equals require handlers slash command handler. Boom. So handle command. Now this is a default export. We're not having a default export. We're having handle command here. Handle command. It's not default export. So handle command message. Cool. So if message content dot starts with, so starts with is a string function. So let's type that. Let's type that in here. So we don't want to clear this. So I'll show what it does. Dot ping dot starts with dot true. Now if we get rid of dot, it's false. If it starts with, it should be self-explanatory. So if it starts with prefix, then it's a command. If it doesn't start with it, then return. There we go. Return false. We can tell if it's a command or not. Return true. We can have this a boolean if the command was handled. So I'm going to do it in this implementation. So it just returns whether a command was handled or not. So yeah, it logs in. Is it still online? Yep. So the prefix here is declared as dot. So if we type dot ping, we get pong. So that means our command handler here is working. So if we type, we can also type message.channel. Message.channel dot send pong, and this gets rid of the the add-in-jr part or the user part. So now ping. So we need to restart. Now if we type ping, we get pong on its own. That's pretty cool. Dot on its own should not do anything because it's not a command. So we can remove the circular dependency. That is great. We don't have one anymore. That's pretty good. Cool. So if the command is not null, execute it. So what if there's a command error? What if there's an error? Okay. So try to execute the command. If it fails, we catch it, and then message.channel.send, and then warning. So we want to get the error message on why it failed. Error.message. Now the error message could be null for some reason. So if it's null, unknown error, and then there we go. Let's restart, and let's purposely throw an error here, And how we can do that, because it extends command, if we don't specify and execute, it throws an error here. That's supposed to happen, but we need to restart it to make sure that is in place. Ping. Execute not implemented. Cool. So that logs command errors in there. Now, the AFK command, let's do that. Let's do the AFK command that was requested. Okay, the AFK command. Now, how would I do that? What does the AFK command do? So, be able to know people who are AFK. So we want to implement a command that allows to do that. So you can pause the video if you're feeling confident and try that yourself. Or you can let me do it and I'll do it for you. So AFK. So AFK, that gets people who are in AFK. So the name is AFK here, and so what we're going to do here is we're going to have a list of people who are AFK, and just no, we're not going to mention them because we don't want to ping them. We just want to get their username and ID, I guess. So let's get the members. I believe we can go into guild.members. Now, guild member. So, presence. Now, there's many ways we can know if they're AFK. Or there might be. Some are better than others. I guess idle means AFK, doesn't it? If you're idle. That's because if I just leave the room, and then come back, technically I was AFK. I was AFK for nearly a minute or more. So if they're idle, I think Discord automatically does that. Hopefully they do, I don't know. Automatically, if they're idle, they're AFK. That's our logic. Okay, so what we do is we get message.guild. So we get guild. So we want to get members of the guild. Guild.members, and then we want to go guild member manager.cache, and that is a map, by the way. So that's a collection similar to a map, not a map. And then that returns it's similar to an array and also similar to a map. It's their own, I guess it's more of a map because you can type .get and then the user ID and it will get a member. So we just want all the members, a collection of them. So .cache.filter, I believe, collection, let's see. It extends map, so it is an extension of map. A map with utility methods, so it's a better version of a map. Because in my opinion, map is a bit lacking in members, so it's probably better. Maps are extremely fast, by the way, to work with. I believe they use hash tables, which is like how languages get objects and store them. Okay, so filter. What is that? Filter. So we're gonna filter through the entries, then get a guild member. So m dot Now we have a guild member here. What do we do with the guild member? Okay, so we have different types of docs. So we want to go on guild member. Then we want presence, dot presence. And then we can either have, I believe, status. And then status. Online, these are the possible string statuses. I don't think that's a plural word, but there you go, status. So if they're idle, dot present status triple equals idle. There we go, AFK members, const. I'm going to call this idle, because it's more accurate. There you go. And then send. So const. So we want a string of all the members. So idle members dot map. So maps the values. You can search that up. But it's dot map and then m dot. So for each member we're going to make a big string, and then we're going to have /n and call this string details. So we want a string basically from this map. It's not really a map, it's just a function name. So for each member, append this string, I guess. Dot join, I think it's dot join. Oh, dot join -n. We'll see. But it should be m.id. We just want the ID of the member here, and then join it with a new line. So members details. See if that works. I don't think it will, but there's only one way to find out. Cool. Idle members empty string. It's because there's no idle members here. So if we make us idle here, make the user. Okay, cool. We can also return this as asynchronous. It should also be awaited here, so it's not synchronous. Executed. And let's have this in a separate line. So, .idle. Now I'm an idle member. Now, another thing we can do with the bot is bot.user.set status idle. We can do that, and that will make the bot idle. Let's see if our little command works. Just ignore that. Oh, it's because our handle command is not asynchronous. Async function. Cool. So that's what we need to do. It's probably not good syntax here. So let's just add that somewhere. Oh, we already have it here, so it's kind of pointless. Cool. So now we get the idle members. Apparently 1pg is an idle. What? Bot user set status idle. What's going on? I want the bot to be idle. So the bot is idle. Maybe someone's logging in with the bot, but there we go. Idle. So idle members, it doesn't count itself as a member, which is quite weird actually. So there's only one idle member, I guess, as it seems to not be counting itself as idle. Okay, let's see. Okay. It's fine, but I believe this should work actually. So we map here. Let me demonstrate what's going on here. It's quite confusing. So what map does is, so the ID of the user is this. So we have an array of user IDs, that's what this does. And we also don't need this, we just want the ID. We also want it to be a string, so we can do that instead of just a number. Actually, it is already a string, so we don't need to have this syntax. In C# it's a ulong, or a very long number, 18 characters long. So now here, what we do is we join it with a new line. New line basically puts on a new line, but yeah. That's what it should do anyway. Maybe we could even make this one big function here, details, and then do that. So now we're going to handle events. It's been longer than expected, so we're going to handle events. So we make a new, we can just copy command handler here. So now, I don't know why this is here. Let's get rid of that. Okay. Cool. Yeah, it's extremely late now. I plan to end it by now, but end the stream. Okay, so we're going to require event handlers, which is going to handle all of this. Event handlers / event handler. Require that at the bottom or just there. There we go, at the bottom actually. This file will just log in, that's it. So in event handler, paste this in. Now, so module.export equals. We really don't need to export anything. It's not using anything from this in separate commands. So in the same way, we can make a file called events. That's what we're going to call it. Not a folder. Sorry, file. Not a file, folder called events. So Control D to duplicate the cursor. So we name this events. So what will command.name be here? So it won't be name. It will be .on. Bot.on. This is the name, I guess. This will also be called event. And then this will be called event as well. Cool. So we're going to have handler, event handler. We already have that, so just event.js will do. And then in the same way as command, let's copy that. Boom. We're going to have on, and then invoke instead of execute. That's it. So, invoke not implemented. Cool. So now I can just copy and paste ready event.js, and then class extends event, and then event we need to require event. Now we've required event, we type on ready, and then instead of typing this, we can paste it in here. Now there is a problem. We don't have the bot variable here, so we can just require that. So get bot, there we go. Cool. So we can remove that, and then we can remove this. We don't need that. And bot.onMessage, we can have the same thing here. So message event. So bot.onMessage. So we don't need that. So we just copy this syntax here. This function, I guess. Then we get message here. So now we need to actually listen to the events. So I don't think we need a map here. We can just type bot. We're gonna have a circular dependency between bot and event handler, but that doesn't matter because both are very connected. Bot. So bot.on, event.on, event, boom. So loaded events. Cool. So it does not like that. Why does it not like that? Because we need to type handlers.event in the. So we start from the root directory. So I believe this function starts at the root directory of the project and moves up. So handlers/events. Now we don't need to go back 2 folders. Okay, I've got that wrong. No. It does not like that. Okay, cool. Okay, so event.on. What is going wrong here? Oh. Okay, so bot.on event. We don't want to just pass that in. Invoke. Now we want to bind to this. We want to bind the event, because if we don't, then the value of this within the value of this here within this invoke function, or the class of the invoke function, will not equal this class. So I would not be able to call a function here, not be able to call this function, this.a, not be able to do that, because this would equal whatever is set here within the on event listener. So it automatically passes in the arguments here. There we go. So now we don't have handle command here. Let's get rid of bot. Cool. Now we have another problem. Can't find handlers command handler. Why not? Because we need to refactor this. Or we can just go back 2 folders. There we go. Command handlers, or 1 folder. Command handler events is not defined. Oh yeah, we don't need events really. So we can just type file names dot size, that -1, because there is this template variable here. We could do that. Template class, not variable. Okay, cool. So add events. Let's do that. So loaded 2 commands, loaded 2 events, logged in. It's working. So now if we type idle, all the commands work. Not high because we didn't add that. So we've added events and commands. Now what we're going to do is go to npm js.org data Mongoose. What is Mongoose? So Mongoose is a wrapper for MongoDB. So please install MongoDB not Atlas, Compass. Install that. It's a database for storing your data. It's like, imagine a directory of files really. So I'll explain it soon. So what we want to do, install MongoDB Compass, also install MongoDB server, community server, install that. Make sure you download that. So if you have MongoDB installed, you can type MongoV, that might work, version. Basically it shows up here, so my version is this. Okay, so we can close that down. Now we go into VS Code, type MongoD. Okay, now we can connect to, we can just press connect and it should connect to localhost, the default port, with the default port. There we go. So we have I already have all these random databases here, so we're going to use 1pg, but we're going to use 1pg demo for this. So for 1pg, the actual version, non-demo one, I used so basically the ID is a reference to this document here, and then I'm logging the messages that the user sends. So this is me as a user, someone else, other people here, and then we have guilds. We have the prefix here, prefix, and dot. That's what we use. So this is a collection of documents, and this is that's what it's called, the guilds collection within a database. It's pretty simple. So let's install Mongoose as a wrapper to MongoDB. npm I save Mongoose. So we're going to require it here. So mongoose.connect config.mongoDB, I guess. And then we can have MongoDB, it's called. And we're just going to have this MongoDB URL here. So instead of https // it will be MongoDB : / and then whatever you want. So in this case it's localhost, that's it. And by default it's on this port 27017. That's what server, that's what port this process listens on. So it starts on this part. There we go. So you need MongoDB running for this to work, because that's the database server. So we can remove that. Now we also want the database name, which we'll use 1pg-demo. Cool. Okay. So we connect with that, and then after we connected, we log console.log. So if it doesn't log, if error, so we'll handle that here. If error, it's a ternary operator by the way. Failed to connect to database, otherwise connected to database. That's it. And then we can separate this. Hold on. There we go. So now when we refresh, we're going to debug console. Config is not defined. Why is that? Let's import it. Config.json is imported. Now let's load. Connected to database successfully now. Cool. So now what we do is we make a folder called models now. Mongoose. Now we go on mongoose.js. Not the animal. Okay, so what is a model? Let's find out. So we make a folder called models. Okay, so our model is, think of it as a template of a document. So we're going to type guild.js here. Now guild.js is a model, but we'll get onto that in a minute. So we can just import Mongoose here, and then so const, so module.export, so we'll export it, equals mongoose.model. So the model will model, so the collection name here is pretty dynamic. MongoDB is dynamic. So cat, we're not actually going to call it cat, we're going to call it guild. And then the name, this is the model, the schema. So we can just have this, I guess. So we add a schema here. So ID is a string, it's their special syntax, string. Cool. So we're going to open their docs. So this is their schema syntax. It's a special way of declaring types, similar to TypeScript interfaces. So ID, and then we're going to have general equals an object. Cool, but it doesn't equal an object. We need to specify what type it is. So type is an object. We can just type that, but we want a default as well, which is new, not geo, new general module. I am not very good at typing, so apologies for that. So new general class general module. There we go. So prefix. So the prefix is by default dot. That's it. It's a class, so it makes this as a class by default. So this is the name of a collection. So in this case, it adds an S at the end for some reason. But there we go. So let's add this at the bottom. Cool. Now, Another cool thing with Mongoose is you can specify the minimum value. If we go into model, schema, we can look at how things are defined. So, schema definition. We can have different types here. We can click on this. We can have MongoDB validation here to specify the min value, max value. It's pretty good. So min and max, that's cool. But I think it's min and max length here. So min length. I believe this should work. So min length 1, max length. So the max length 8. Oh, sorry, this should be the prefix here. But that's different. That is different. Okay, never mind. Okay, cool. So we have Mongoose here, and we're exporting this, but we can have validation like that. Schema validation, not in our setup though. So, what do we need to do now? So, guild. So in command handler, we want to make sure we're going to add a specific command called prefix. So, we'll learn the prefix, what it does. We want command arguments here, so command handler here. Cool. Let's get the arguments. What are the arguments? How do we get the arguments? So const arguments, the command arguments, what comes after the command? So ping. So, in this case, we'll just get the slice content. And then split, divide it by spaces, and then slice one, get everything after the name. So, remove this ping and get that ping. That's the args. Execute message, then args. But ..args, that's what we're gonna do, REST operator. So if the arguments were that, let's do .ping 1111. That's what the arguments would be here. As you can see. There we go. So let's actually type the args in here. Done. Cool. Prefix. So if message.content, then or just args. So, new value. So we need to set it to a value. There we go. Okay, so return prefix is. There we go. So we need to get the guild, so const. Now we need a data folder to actually get the guild. So guilds.js. So equals class. Now guilds So guilds equals, or we can just type get guild. I've done that wrong, haven't I? Get ID string. No, I'm losing brain cells here. I have a tutorial on making the bot 24/7. Okay, so get ID. So we can just get the ID here. So guilds. Save guild. Now we can type saved guild. That's what we're going to call it. So const. So we get the save guild from. So we need to import this. Import this. Import the guild. Return save guild. Find by ID. ID. Or if that one doesn't exist, save guild.create. And then ID equals ID, then save. So underscore ID is the convention using Mongoose. There we go. Also, we need to await this, otherwise because they're both not promises. One's a query or something. Query, that's not a promise though. Different things. Async get. Cool. So const saved guild equals guilds. So what is guilds? I don't know. Let's import it. Data slash guilds. Guilds.get. What? Okay, we need. Okay. So I'm just going to instantiate this. New class. Done. Wait guilds.get. Message.guild.id. That gets the guild. The message that the message was executed in. So save guild.prefix, and we could just type general, destructure it. There we go. Dot prefix, of course. Or we can just type prefix. That won't work. So there we go. So return that, otherwise return message.channel.send prefix is now and then escape. So code block general value. So how do we know that? Wow. So if value, sorry, if no value, so if value, so we want to actually set this prefix general.prefix equals value. Actually, we don't want to do that. I want the saved guild actually. So save guild.general.prefix. And then, oh my days, save guild.save. I literally can't type, I can't see my keyboard. Okay, there we go. What just happened? What just happened? Oh. Okay, there we go. So we've added a prefix command, but it hates me. So we need to add async here. So there we go. And now I've done a boo-boo somewhere. Bot.on is not a function, very weird. Why is that happening? Because there's no bot when we require event handler, the bot isn't even declared yet, so that's why we add them at the bottom, because we want the bot to exist before we call that, or we instantiate that. So ping hi. So prefix, oops, prefix. Okay, ready, oops, event, and then let's remove this call. Cast failed for path at path ID for model guild. So why is it failing? I believe we need to specify the ID. I messed it up. I think that needs to be $, not $, underscore ID, and that should be more successful. So now that's how they define it. Saved, okay, different error. So .create.save is not a function. Interesting. So I'm gonna make a function private. That's TypeScript, isn't it? Async create ID. So now then we await and create rhymes. Await and create, or await then create. Saved. And then we're just going to return this like that, so it's cleaner, just cleaner syntax. Await create. This create ID. Cool. Let's refresh that and hope that it works. So dot prefix. Prefix is dot prefix slash. What? Okay, we'll just copy this. Just copy it how it is, really. If that doesn't work, then I guess it won't work. Okay, we'll just try this as a last resort. Don't need that. There we go. So I don't know. It might be a problem with the creation. Could be. Let's find out. Okay, prefix slash. Oh my god. Okay, so apparently it doesn't want to work. I don't know why, but it just doesn't want to work today. So that's it. Hopefully I'll edit this. I'll edit it into lots of smaller parts if it's good enough. But we have a bot, we have data here. We have data, we're using Mongoose here. Okay, so we have a custom prefix which we can manually set here, I guess. And the project will be in the description after it's done, so I have to end it. See ya.